itself, I think, and light even. Like, that's kind of
Yeah,
how I view it.
I got the definition of ectropy here. Is the opposite of entropy, increasing in order. So something that organizes things, the organizational force of the universe. That's what I was trying to get at when I was asking you guys if you believe that either entropy or ectropy is a dominant force. Do the organizational forces, are they dominant, or are the disorganizational forces dominant?
It's a great question, dude.
I believe that ectropy is the dominant force, otherwise life wouldn't exist right now and it couldn't exist. It would cease to exist quickly.
Well, it's
So the
probably perfectly.
organizational force is the dominant one. Go ahead.
They're probably perfectly balanced with one another, if I had to guess.
Wouldn't that be perfect equilibrium, though?
Yeah.
Or that would be maybe what we call dynamic disequilibrium.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it also. I mean, if organization took control, then we probably wouldn't have free will because everything would be cause and effect. And then if entropy took control, then we probably wouldn't be able to exist because things would be too chaotic and there'd be, it just wouldn't be possible for life to exist.
I think the way that this universe was built, however you want to look at it, was built in a way that ectropy is the dominant force. But, I mean, we're crossing into the lines of metaphysics here.
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a philosophical question than a...
How would we determine that, though? Like, would things
Well, I mean,
just effectively be more efficient in terms of, like, natural order and just natural processes? Like, would there be, like, less resistant? I mean, like, what would that look like?
self-healing, maybe. I mean, that's a great question because, like, things go out of disorder or whatever, but, like, say ecosystems, for example, have a way of balancing themselves. And so in that way, I guess you could say that order is the dominant force, so that when disorder comes into the system, there is a mechanism by which the order regains full control.
Hmm. I'm thinking about nature, and if things were just rapidly accelerating quicker than normal
Yeah, you could say,
versus,
like, nature is a great way. Like, animals get out of control, right? You get too many animals in an area for whatever reason, and then all of a sudden it becomes easy pickings for the predators because the predators have a lot to choose from, and pretty soon the predators pick off the prey that they're looking for and keep their population to the limit they're supposed to be at. I mean, that would be just one simple example of ectropy in nature.
so if things were completely harmonious, right? Death didn't exist. Um, living things were immortal. Um, what would be there to kind of balance everything? Like, it almost seems like this sort of yin and yang play between flux and reflux and life and death and abundance and
Maybe I
scarcity. There's like a fine line between things, like being able to kind of flourish with intention instead of just staying stagnant. Like, I don't know, it's all weird, bro.
a dynamic disequilibrium. I mean, I don't know if there is a technical definition for that term. I've heard people use it, and I think it may have been, the term may have been coined by Victor Schauberger, but it really is a useful thing, I think. Because, like, we are trying to describe something like, is this in balance or is it not? Is it in a state of equilibrium or is it not? And there are obviously different forces at play. These are things that I think about, so I think this conversation is really interesting. I don't want to totally derail you guys. I just want to throw it in there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all your input, man, for sure. I brought the question up the other day, and we didn't really dive into it too long, so I'm glad someone's finding interest because I think it's interesting. I think about it a lot.
Yeah, it's like intelligent design. Like, there is some type of intelligent design. There's no doubt about it. And It's just the intricacy of the way things work, like we just talked about with a simple ecosystem, where a prey animal will the population will get out of control, but then the predators will keep it in check naturally. But like the whole world is that way, you know what I mean? Like every ecosystem on the planet. Until of course we come along and fuck it up.
I kind of look at it like the pursuit of wealth, right? Like oftentimes I hear a lot of wealthy people say that the funnest part was the event of climbing the ladder to the top. It wasn't getting to the top and being at the top. It was all the things they came across, upon the journey to get to the top. And I kind of look at it like that with life, like how you're saying, like, there's things kind of keeping checks and balances and not letting stuff like become super overpopulated. It's like, what if that is the real beauty? It's not the equilibrium or the rest factor of things, but the dynamic nature of it. I don't know, man. I'm getting out there.
I kind of see what you're saying, yeah.
Like it's kind of the opposite of how you would want to perceive it. You know what I mean? Like kind of think of everybody's kind of has their own quintessential mental version of what a utopia would look like. But like, what if in the big macro scheme of things, like it was actually the opposite? I don't know. It's kind of like that age-old question of like, you know, if you were immortal, let's just say, like, would that be best? I don't think so. I don't think I
Well, you
would
make a
want to be
good point.
immortal.
Well, that's what makes life special, right? Like you only get so much time. You only get so much time with so many people, and you choose to spend time with certain people, and that's special because of how much time you have. Kind of get what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
Like if you were
Like,
immortal, you wouldn't be motivated to do anything because you're like, I can do it next week, or I can do it in a millennia, or whatever.
right. Like I don't think you would have the same appreciations that you do now for the things you do. Like I think yeah, I think your outlook would completely change.
Yeah, that would be only possible if you can reinvent your life and find a new ladder to climb, right?
Yeah, I mean, what would be meaningful at that point?
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I think death will always be a solution to start a new life. As in being an infinite one and a finite one at the same time, physical and metaphysical.
I mean, some say the beauty of life is all the diverse choices and things you have. Like, imagine eating the same food every day of your life. Like, how boring would that fucking be to have to eat? You know?
Sure, yeah. Like you think about like ectropy, or whether ectropy or entropy is like the dominant force. Like what is the organizational force? Like when something does break down, like an animal dies and then it gets broken down by bacteria and funguses and stuff like that. Well, then that matter's just chilling in the ground. Like what reorganizes that matter? And it's like, well, life does. Okay, so what gives life the ability to organize matter in such a way? And it's like, well, you look at cymatics. Okay, in cymatics, when you strike a correct note, on the plate with the sand or whatever, it creates a coherent pattern, you know. And so
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
that
there's a,
those,
a
Sure.
specific geometry for life. And like Ken often says, between the spirit or the soul and the body and the binding factor between those two. Because you've got matter and then you've got spirit, but what binds those two together is water. and it's actually the geometry of the water molecule being this 108 36 36 geometry. And he's saying that like this geometry is literally like the pinnacle of a lot of the ancient understandings. You know, whether it be the Pythagoreans or the Vedics or the ancient Egyptians, like they were all understood on this certain geometry. And like what you're talking about with cymatics, you know, that's all like right on par with this whole matter organizing into life thing, right? Following this certain geometry.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I like how you said it's like people or whatever or water, because water is actually in the shape of an antenna. And Ken talks about the water being an antenna. And that antenna
Right.
would be receiving a frequency and then, transmitting that. It's a two-way street kind of, if you will. Yeah. Yeah,
He
that's
gives the
awesome.
hand. I like the hand wave radio analogy for sure. Yeah, he says the water would be the antenna, the radio would be, you know, the matter, and the signal, right? The thing being picked up, received, and modulated, interpreted, and transmitted would be the signal or the source, or what we're calling the spirit, the animating factor.
The non-physical organizational force, the true organizational force is that frequency or that signal, if you will. It's
Right.
the signal itself, not even its modulation. I remember him
Right.
saying that. It's a super important distinction to make. You are the signal itself, not its modulation.
Yeah, he asked another question a while back. He said, try imagining a signal without modulation.
Yeah, there you go. A flat line? Is that what it is?
I don't know. I'll have to go back and try to make sense of it, but yeah, he talks about it. He's talked about it before. You know, a signal without modulation is almost like an unfathomable concept.
It'd be like a characteristicless thing, which we define things by their characteristics. So
Right. There's not even a hypothetical thing that you can come up with that wouldn't have at least one attribute, if not multiple.
it's funny, like the guy was talking about earlier, trying to bend space-time. Well, Ken says you can no more bend space-time than you can bend a unicorn fart. So if you can find a unicorn fart to bend, then you're good to go.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, in order for something to be manipulated, it has to have physicality. And space is not of that.
Guy made a good point though earlier, asking about counter space. Thought that was a good question, but to me, it's the infinite point of pure potential. Just like Nikola Tesla and ancient cultures talked about. It's everything and nothing.
Right. Space itself, yeah, has its volume, right? It's a measure. It has a starting and end point. But when you're dealing with something that has no starting and end point, you know, I don't know how we could conceive of that as having volume or a measure.
It's infinity and zero at the same time. It's two sides of the same coin.
Is infinity even possible though?
Yes. For example,
Says
pi.
you.
Well, it says mathematics. Do you believe in mathematics? Pi has infinite digits, meaning the numbers of pi, or the digits, they go on forever. That's one proof that we have that infinity exists.
How about think of somebody you love a lot and then ask yourself, well, how
I was
long
on
are you
mute.
going to love that person?
We don't have numbers in nature. So, like when you say pi, like, can you show me,
Yes,
the
that's
number
because
3
we
in
live
nature?
in the fallen world. The mathematical world is pure and it's perfect, but we live, like the Christians say, we live in a fallen world. So the world we live in is not perfect. but we know that math describes reality.
Right. I think math does a good job at describing reality.
But it doesn't
Um,
explain.
Correct. And that's the epitome of science, right? When you're doing science, you're looking to get to a concise, logical, rational explanation, not just some vague, ambiguous description. Like I always give the analogy of like three blind men describing an elephant, and one's grabbing the tail and describing some long curly thing that could be considered an antenna, maybe. Another one's describing what seems to be like a telephone pole. He's got his leg, and then another one's grabbing the trunk. You know, I mean, everyone's given different answers. Nobody's actually gotten to a concise, logical, rational explanation because they're all blind. So until they take the blindfold off, step back and look at reality for what it is, they're never going to know it's an elephant. I mean, don't take the analogy too far, of course, but that's kind of math in a nutshell.
Okay, so you want me to give you a more philosophical example of infinity, right?
Well, I'm looking for something that's more practical, something logical, something that I can make sense of in nature, right? I can look in nature and say, oh yeah, there's math. Stupid me.
I've given a lot of
Well,
thought to this, and I think the only thing that transcends space and time is love. But go ahead.
you could perhaps say consciousness is infinite because you did not have consciousness before you were born, right? So it's like it either existed or it doesn't. You know, it just is. It's infinite.
You know for sure you didn't have consciousness before you were born. What if you had a lot more consciousness before you were in the body? Like
No,
how
that's
have you?
not what I was saying. I was saying you can't have the experience of not having consciousness. Like by definition, that's impossible. So you could say consciousness is infinite. I also think time is infinite. The universe is basically like a loop or a cycle where it starts and then it restarts and then it restarts. There's no beginning, there's no end.
But see, a circle has no beginning and no end, right? That's why you have pi that effectively goes off forever, right? Because there is no starting point and ending point in a simple circle. So
Is there such thing as a perfect circle?
so when you're saying that like time or whatever is just in a loop, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
That
sir.
time is in a loop?
Yes, the circle is one of the most fundamental shapes of reality. It's the seed of life, the flower of life.
Right. So when you're saying that time has no start point or end point, how can, going back to what was being previously said about space time, how can you have some sort of properties or aspects to it that would be bending or abnormal if it's in a perfect circle?
I didn't claim space-time was a perfect circle.
But time
I
can be manipulated according to your ideas or concepts, right? So at a
yeah,
certain point, you can stop time, go back and forth within time, manipulate time. But how could time be in some sort of infinite loop if it didn't have regularity to it?
well, it does have structure to it. It's just not time is not uniform in all points in space. So
See,
there
I
are
think
some.
it's been yet to have been proven. But if that's the case, is the infinite loop of time that you claim, is it not a circular loop?
I mean, a circle is one way to think about it mentally, I guess, if you want to think about it like that, yeah. I mean, you can also think about it like the number line. There's infinite numbers. So you could say it's just going in one direction for infinite.
But numbers
Start
aren't
exit.
necessarily reality, right? They're not real unless they have some demarcation or some whatever
Well,
to something in reality.
I
So
guess
to say
that's
that
where
because we can continue to create numbers forever, so on and so forth, doesn't mean that numbers prove that there's some sort of infinity.
Well, I guess I disagree with the flat earthers on that. I actually think math is the fundamental part of our reality. I think mathematics is more real than anything else.
What if math is
Wow.
only zeros and
I'd
ones?
actually agree. I'd actually agree, almost kind of agree with that though, because you guys are familiar with phi and the Fibonacci's. You guys are familiar with phi and the Fibonacci sequence, right?
Yes, sir.
I'd say that's
Yeah.
geometry, not math.
Yeah,
That
expressions of reality explained mathematically doesn't necessarily mean that the math is the reality.
What do you think reality is? Reality is just an expression of mathematics.
the
If you're
math
living
is
in a
what tells
world,
the. But the thing is, this everything's growing and all living things have this Fibonacci, the phi in it, and the Fibonacci sequence is how it tells phi where to start, because phi doesn't know where to start, so the Fibonacci sequence tells it where to start. I mean, I would say it's I don't know, it's fundamental maybe or something is built in. I don't know, however you want to phrase that.
Jeremy, do you believe such a thing as a perfect circle could possibly exist in the ever expanding universe?
No, because it'd have to be 2D, right?
Yeah, unless you had a perfect sphere.
I could have sworn I remember hearing something. A circle is actually a 3D object. Somebody was describing it. But I draw a distinction between math and geometry, and I think of like pi rambling off forever into a bunch of numbers is a fantastic description or a way to show that math is not an adequate descriptor of reality.
So you realize that geometry and algebra are connected, right? Literally all of math is connected. So if you accept geometry, you also have to accept everything else.
Well, this guy's going to start talking about
So
constellations and
yeah, so you're in your conception of reality, Sasha, that it's like what came first? Math? And in the beginning there was math, and math mathed things into reality. Is that what is happening?
No. I believe in God. I believe in God also.
But what is math? You
Math
say
is
it's
the
reality.
structure. Math is the fundamental structure of reality.
That there is no physicality. You say
Yeah, I don't
structure.
agree with that at all.
Structure would imply physicality, hence
No,
the
you
term
have to think
structure. So if
abstractly.
you're
Math is an
implying that math
abstract
is the
class.
structure of reality, then you would have to imply physicality into mathematics.
It's an abstract structure. Not everything is physical. You guys are thinking too much on the physical realm.
We're thinking of what we call reality. Reality is only that in which is physical, right? The aspects
What?
that are
No.
non-physical or spiritual are not within this reality, right?
What about when you dream? When you dream, is that physical?
No. Dream world
Okay,
is not
so
reality either. Your dreams are not reality.
really, when you're in the dream, it feels pretty real, doesn't it?
they say in a dream you cannot do math. Try it next time.
Okay,
Ooh.
dude, I'm not really interested in talking to you, so can you just mute up?
Ooh.
What's going on?
Well, math is hard for you, I know. It's okay.
Well,
Truth Seeker, is zero a number?
Yes, it is.
with the
You
value of
probably
what can you relate to zero?
absolute zero, nothingness, point.
So there's a such thing as nothingness or no thing.
So,
Where's Dieslow? Is Dieslow still here?
yes, if you want to think about something of zero, think about a point A point in space has 0 dimensions. It has 0 length, width, height, or time.
But a point would still have to be singular. Otherwise, you would have to think about nothing.
Yeah, it's a singularity. It doesn't exist.
One.
It's just a point. There's nothing.
No, it would be one. Singular. Singular. Look up the definition of singular.
Yeah, but singularity is.
You mean like one of a kind?
Yeah, so 0 and infinity are actually 2 sides of the same coin. When you divide by 0, you get infinity. Likewise, if you divide by infinity, you get 0. And these are numbers where mathematics starts to break, because you actually can't divide by 0 in the physical world, because that's something only God can do.
You guys haven't seen that Fibonacci sequence video I just posted in the chat? A little thumbnail of like a dragonfly or something. Super dope video with illustrations of the Fibonacci sequence and numbers and math. It's definitely related, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be something to the Fibonacci sequence.
If you just go watch that video, you'll see it's fucking dope, dude. Breaks down like it's real simple. It's like reverse engineered almost.
Yeah, I mean, the Fibonacci sequence can be found all across the human body, actually.
Yeah, it's just a definition of the ratios, right? It doesn't mean that the math is the reality. The math is a description of the reality.
Yeah, but it's interesting though, like those ratios where they've shown when you put them proportionally proper, like in a woman's face, like that's why some people are beautiful and some people are ugly. Like the proportionality, there's something about it. It's like notes on a keyboard too. Like certain notes sound good, and it's like there's a reason for that. I couldn't tell you what that
100%.
reason is, but
It's
And there
because
is,
there's an underlying structure.
and there's a cadence to it. Yeah, there's an underlying structure. The explanation is different than the description. The math is the description. It's not the explanation. 1 + 1 = 2, right?
Sure.
That can describe a relationship. Doesn't
I would
explain
disagree.
what is one representing. 1 + 1 = 2, right? That's correct.
1 and 1 is 11.
I didn't say 1 and 1. I said 1 + 1.
Was the plus invented before the 0 was invented? In your mathematics scheme you're portraying here?
Yeah, I'm not the one portraying the scheme if you're listening properly, right? So if you have one thing and you add another thing, you can say that you have two things. But those two things can certainly not be explained by that equation. It just gives you a definition as to what I may be holding. Two things. That's it.
It's makes me think of like a blueprint of a concept.
Yeah.
Is Geo low for you guys? You're a little bit low for me, Geo.
All right.
I would ask, where's your microphone? Oh, I got you
Yeah, you
turned
can-
down a little bit. There you go.
That's
I might have
good-
been a little high before, so why I dialed it down a little. I mean, you guys let me know, but so maybe if you
Yeah, if someone's a little hot, sometimes it's easier not to tell them, other than if you can't hear them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but Napalm made me think of that because like a blueprint is not the house in that way. Like the blueprint is just like the model. It's like showing like you said, the relationships of what the walls are going to be, or when you have a legend, a square inch equals, 10 by 10 feet or whatever it is. So yeah, it's like, I don't know if that analogy fits in every way, but yeah, I was just thinking of that when you were saying that.
No, I
No,
mean
the
it certainly
Fibonacci
does, right? It's like
sequence
I
is
could
the
give you
blueprint. The
true.
Fibonacci sequence is the blueprint for life. Like straight up.
So
Yeah, but the
Jeremy,
blueprint isn't the house, right? Like I could give you the blueprints of my house. I could give you the floor plan. I could give you, the elevation drawings, all of that stuff. But you looking at all of that, seeing how it's all put together, all of that, certainly cannot tell you what it's like to come into my home and break bread, right? Certainly can't tell you what my home smells like, what the vibe is, what it feels, the energy of the home. None of that.
What the vibe is, what the vibration is.
how hot is that hot tub?
I don't
Yeah,
have
but
a hot
those,
tub,
but
but
those
the
are all
pool's at
real. Those
76
things,
right now.
those are all the real, like in terms of the word reality. Yeah, like all those things you just mentioned. Yeah, those are the, yeah, how it smells, how it looks, where your couch is positioned, all that stuff. Whereas the blueprint is, it is sort of like a mathematical foundation or it's like a representation of what the layout of the house is. So in that way, it's like a model as well. But
Feng shui, right?
No, but notice how he said vibration or vibe. That can be described by mathematical functions also.
No, you cannot give me the mathematical explanation to the vibe that you would have at my household.
Yeah, give me the math for what it smells like
You could say it's a
on a Christmas
combination.
morning.
Yeah.
So you could
Give
say
me the math of what it was like when I had friends over Saturday night. Go ahead and math that out for me. Let me know what that vibe was
If
like.
I walk in your house and it's only a candle that smells like sugar cookies, the vibe goes down very quickly when I find out that it's only a candle that smells like sugar cookies.
And there are no actual sugar cookies. Yeah, you're losing points for that one for sure.
And I like looking in the oven. I'm like, okay, they got to be here somewhere.
Like, where's the cookies?
this is a random comment, but the first time I met Jaronism, he made that joke because Red's Rhetoric used to say math is reality, and he used to do it in that voice, like the Red's Rhetoric voice, and so Jaron would do that, like math is reality, like he would do that as like kind of like like kind of like basically making fun of Red's Rhetoric in a way, I guess, kind of making fun of him, but also like just that whole idea. And it's just funny that many years ago, like Jaron saying that, we're like laughing, whatever, because he said it in front of like it was like several people, and it was funny, people who got it at least. And Jaron used to say that and stuff. He used to do that. And then I'm not trying to shift the conversation. I'm not trying to shift it to Jaron at all or any of that. I was just saying it as a side thing that he said that, and then like apparently a few weeks ago, like Jaron did like a live stream with Red's Rhetoric. I didn't listen to it, but it's like, did Jaron say, "Oh yeah, math is reality"? Yeah, you were right this whole time. I don't know. It's just funny, but. It's always the globe folks that try to say math is reality in a way.
What's up, Andrew? We're talking perfect, non-perfect circles. And Andrew, do you believe 0 is a number?
Actually debated for a long time. Well, you wanted to. Oh, why'd you target Andrew specifically? Like, I have thoughts on 0 and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. He's kind of trolling.
I
What were you
thought
gonna say?
the truth prevails has come in, or Andrew? I'm sorry. Whoever just entered the room.
The flat earther.
They were debating on introducing 0 as a number along with negative numbers for a very long time, like mathematicians and stuff, because
Jeremy, how does it go?
there is no 0, like in reality. Like, you can't have 0 of something.
Math gets a lot crazier than that, right? In math, we have imaginary numbers, like the square root of -1. Like, the rabbit hole goes a lot deeper.
Math can represent reality. It can also not represent reality.
Well, I guess that comes up in the globe discussions because of how heavily they rely on math for a lot of their cosmological claims, and then trying to link those to the kind of materialistic paradigm of things.
You guys should adopt my worldview.
I'm gonna do a hard pass.
I mean, how could math be reality when a lot of it is numbers? I could, I mean, a number is like a
No,
concept,
it's
like Napalm was saying. It's like a representation of something. It's not a thing itself. Like two is not an actual physical thing.
yeah. Math is abstract. That's why they say math is abstract.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think about it like this. Why is there something rather than nothing?
Can you
Well,
hand me two, Sasha? If I said give me two, can you hand me two?
no.
No. Could you hand me four?
Dude, I don't like these bad faith questions. It's not interesting.
That's not bad faith. It's just pointing out that in reality, math isn't something that is within this realm that we can touch, smell, see, hear, or feel. It can only describe things that are in reality. It's a description.
Well, it's an abstract class. It exists on a
Ab-
higher realm.
abstract
Yeah.
means
Not in
it
this
has
world.
no concreteness. There's
No,
nothing concrete to it.
abstract means it transcends the physical world. Math is above the physical world.
Where'd you get transcends where'd you get that definition from? Who told you that?
Well, this is my belief, but I believe math existed way before the physical world did.
What was math mathing when it had nothing to math?
How much math? Yeah,
Well, this
we're gonna make a
is the
nursery
Big
rhyme out of
Bang,
this.
right? This is where I believe in the Big Bang and the seed of life and the flower of life. These are geometric symbols where God expanded its consciousness into various shapes, which is the seed of life or the flower of life, which is a combination of circles, and that's what gave birth to the physical world.
I got the tongue
We
twister. You
we
ready,
we
Napalm?
superimposed.
Hold
We
on, bro.
super.
Hold on, dude. How much math could a Matthew math if a Matthew could math? Go ahead, Dieslow.
That was not
That's
worth
what I
it.
waited for.
That wasn't worth it. All right, I tried.
That was weak,
Sorry.
bro.
All right, sorry.
You got to put
We
some respect on
superimposed.
Abstract's name. Sorry,
Funny, calm
Dieslow.
down, bro. We
Oh, come on.
superimpose math on. All right, it's good. All right.
Dieslow. Go ahead.
It's all right. I'm good.
No, you're not. You're not good. We
Dude,
all
no
know
one
you're
was
not
even
good. Go ahead.
overtalking you. Just go ahead.
I was just saying we superimpose math on a reality. It's not the other way around, dude.
I don't know, dude. I feel like
Abstract stuff.
before. Go ahead.
Just saying abstract stuff shouldn't be dismissed because isn't like consciousness and love like abstract as well?
Yeah,
I don't know,
exactly.
but I feel like before you had anything concrete, you had like the math is built into it, so you had to have this to do the concrete stuff. You know what I'm saying? At least for life, living things, at least.
I kind of think of math as being like woven into everything in like a foundational way. Doesn't mean that it like is reality single-handedly, but it's like interwoven into everything. Which I mean, in
Think
terms of like
about
physics, and I mean, of course, yeah, everything we
think
know
about it.
in reality has mathematical. Like even the body is designed in the Fibonacci sequence, like the distance between that, like for example, your shoulder to your elbow to your wrist to the tip of your fingers, etc. Those are all the Fibonacci. Every single one of your digits in your fingers.
It's all phi, yeah. And Fibonacci tells phi where to start. Yo, here's the thing: is though, for if the blueprint and math is the analogy, you can't have the concrete house before you have the blueprint. You know what I'm saying? You had to have the math first.
Here's something interesting in regards to math and this conversation entirely. I'm not going to ask trivia questions. I'll just tell you that negative numbers did not exist for a very, very long time, even though math still existed. It was during one of the Chinese dynasties, and that's where they created negative numbers. And then in the 1500s, Robert Record also created the equal sign. in mathematics. Before that, didn't exist. So there's your little math facts of the day. I have a lot more too, but I'm about to pull into the store. But yeah, math is one of those things that is descriptive, sort of like language. Because if you don't have language, you can't really have math, because it has to have a meaning to it. So if you're going to be moving forward with saying that math is reality, as Red's rhetoric has said many times, that's very, very odd. I don't understand why he said that to begin with. Even though I think he has like at least a master's degree. I think he works for NASA too. He'll never show his face. Fucking coward. But either way, I get it. Some people don't want to show their face for whatever reason. I mean, the thing is, when it comes to, yes, if I give you 2 apples, I cannot take away 5 apples, and then all of a sudden there's -3 apples. That is borderline an imaginary number. And I've looked up this imaginary numbers kind of thing, and I think a long time ago, when I was taking my statistics course, I think they were talking about that, but I kind of zoned out because it's just sort of like it's unusable. It's not natural. It's not really something that, like, oh, well, the Fibonacci sequence or Ohm's law or pi. Okay, well, yeah, they're numbers, and they say, oh, yeah, these are imaginary numbers. But the only way you can describe it is on a computer or pen and paper. Or you can draw it in the sand if you want, or in the dirt. But math is descriptive. It's not necessarily reality, because reality is physical. Reality is tangible.
Interesting. What if this world is a lot less physical than you think it is?
Okay, well, then if you're go with that, that's a what if. I don't know. That's a hypothetical type of a question, which I don't have the answer to at the moment.
No, I'm just saying, like, we have dreams all the time. Dreams, they feel physical in the moment, but then you wake up and you realize, oh, okay, that was just a dream. What if this reality is sort of another type of dream that we're having?
Yeah, that goes into the astral projection type
Like
of
Vanilla
stuff.
Sky.
Oh yeah, I didn't like that movie. It got super boring, super quick, and I got confused with it. Never even finished watching it, but it had really high ratings on IMDb, and my girlfriend and I watched it, and we were like, yeah, she got bored before I did. But yeah, that's like astral projection as well, which I believe astral projection can be real, and I think I've experienced it on accident when people have sleep paralysis. It's like you're awake, but you're also asleep at the same time. It's like you're dreaming and you're not dreaming. It's fucking weird. I've experienced it twice in my life, only because I was completely sleep deprived. But then when it came to certain circumstances, such as I've heard people say this: if you're dreaming, and well, dare I say, if you're able to control your dreams, which is associated with like astral projection kind of situations, then try to look at yourself in the mirror, or as someone had previously mentioned, try to do a math equation. And for me,
Don't do
it's not a
that.
big deal. Math equations, no problem at all.
I looked in the mirror, bro, in my dream a few weeks ago. It was freaky. I freaked out.
Yeah, so that one I can't expound on very much, only because I don't dream very often.
No, I remember the first ever lucid dream I had. I was like in a library, and as soon as I realized I was dreaming, the first thing I wanted to do was look into a mirror, because I thought everyone always says it's so crazy, and when I did it, it was actually kind of normal.
Oh shit, I was misspeaking. No, you corrected me. Yeah, it's lucid dreaming, not astral projection. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking I was wrong. I was hoping someone would correct me, and you just did. So thank you. Yeah, it's lucid dreaming, like where you're able to control your dreams, which goes into I hate horror movies. The Nightmare on Elm Street, with Freddy Krueger, where people are going into their dreams and all of a sudden they can control their environment, but Freddy Krueger always wins because he's the nightmare expert or something like that.
Yes, sir.